What to eat for IBS? This question does not have a straightforward answer, and that's because IBS, which stands for Irritable Bowel Syndrome, has different types, different symptoms, and is caused by different underlying root causes. Despite that, I'm going to do my best to answer this question. Now, before we get into the diet, I wanted to say that the term IBS is a little frustrating. So, irritable bowel syndrome is a syndrome, and the word syndrome usually means that we have a cluster of symptoms that happen in a group of people. We don't know what caused it, we don't know how it happened, but we're just going to give it a name, and that's frustrating for people with a syndrome such as IBS, because you don't have true answers. We don't have a mechanism of how it developed and how to reverse it. And oftentimes people with syndrome conditions are given medications that are just band-aids. So I'm leaving that for another conversation. If you're wondering if you have IBS, sometimes people get caught up with the label and the diagnosis. For me as a functional dietitian, I am concerned with the symptoms. If you have any of the symptoms that are similar to IBS, the gut is not working properly, and there's something that we can do about it. My name is Noor Zibde. I am a functional and integrative dietitian, and I help people overcome IBS, stomach pain, gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, inflammatory and autoimmune conditions through diet, lifestyle, and supplements based on testing. And I also have some programs that you can do on your own. So let's get started. What could be happening inside your gut that are making you have those symptoms that look like IBS? Because when we understand those underlying root causes, it is going to help us understand better what type of foods are going to be more suitable to eat. Number one, we can have SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and up to 80% of cases of IBS are actually SIBO. And now we know that there are different types of SIBO. We have hydrogen dominant, we have hydrogen sulfide, and now we have intestinal methanogen overgrowth, or IMO. We're learning more about SIBO, and that's going to help us further to customize the diet. So we have SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Then we have post-infectious IBS. 1 in 5 people who develop a food poisoning or gastroenteritis, so that's having an E. coli, Salmonella, Campylobacter infection. 1 in 5 people will develop long-term IBS, and so we have an underlying root cause. Sometimes IBS is actually having infections in the gut, so things like H. pylori, Candida, or parasites. IBS can be because of dysbiosis. You have an imbalance between the beneficial and the inflammatory bacteria. We take a look at it as a big picture, not a single microbe or pathogen. For example, if someone has taken a lot of antibiotics for a variety of reasons, or steroids, or someone is not eating a fiber-rich diet, not a lot of foods that promote a healthy microbiome, a lot of sugars and processed ingredients, now we start to have an imbalance, and now we lose beneficial bacteria that help us digest food, and so we could have IBS symptoms. IBS can be triggered by food sensitivities, which are immune reactions to food, and I have videos on the differences between food sensitivities and allergies and testing. I'll put those in the description as well. IBS can be caused by alterations in gut motility. So we have quick transit, things are going through very quickly, or we have slow motility, which makes things very slow and there's stagnation in the gut. Check out my videos on constipation because I talk more about these as well too. Other underlying root causes are reduced digestive capacity. So you're not producing enough enzymes and juices to support digestion. So that can be because of H. pylori, because of liver or gallbladder issues, low stomach acid, which can be related to certain nutrient deficiencies and thyroid problems. And when we are not digesting our food properly, then we're going to have indigestion, maldigestion, gas, and bloating. Also, a part of that can be chronic use of PPIs and acid blocking medications. And finally, we have stress and nervous system dysregulation. Stress can put you in a fight, flight, or freeze. And when you freeze, your digestive system is not able to process the food properly. And we know that the brain, when stressed out, is going to communicate to the gut and freeze things. But also when you have those Candida, H. pylori, dysbiosis, they're also going to communicate to the brain and create that loop where stress causes digestive issues and digestive issues cause more stress. So we have to address the nervous system as well too. Another root cause can be histamine intolerance. So having too much histamine in the gut can create symptoms that mimic IBS and can cause constipation, or diarrhea, stomach pain, and gas and bloating and cramping. So I have more videos on histamine as well. As you can see, there are multiple underlying root causes of IBS, so the diet is going to be different from one person to another. I'm still going to try to answer that question, but I need you to keep in mind that not everything I suggest is going to work for you, and so hang in there with me and let me know also in the comments what is working and what has been the most helpful for you. What should you eat for IBS? Keep in mind that all these recommendations are not meant to be a lifestyle or a long-term plan to follow. The goal is to follow these for a short period of time, uncover your underlying root causes, fix those, repair digestion so that you can go back and eat a variety of foods with a lot of flexibility, and especially because many of these foods are actually good for your overall gut health and overall well-being. Number one, you can eat animal proteins. So in general, animal proteins like chicken, turkey, beef, different kinds of fish are easier to tolerate and digest for people with IBS. You want to pick pieces that are soft, use moist cooking methods such as sauteing and making a stew and broth, as opposed to dry and chewy and stringy pieces. If you cannot handle meat, that may be a sign that you have H. pylori, not IBS. So that's like a little clue that is not always the case, but just like a little FYI. So animal proteins tend to be easy to digest and handle. You can be on a vegetarian diet and get relief from IBS, but you have to be really careful how to get the protein from different plant sources. When it comes to vegetables, they can be the trickiest category along with fruit. So with vegetables, carrots, zucchini, and green beans tend to be the easiest to tolerate. Cook them to make them moist and soft and fully broken down and easy to handle. For some people, they need to be completely pureed, and for some other people, they can handle raw carrots. Some people in the middle where you have to saute or steam or roast, and I tend to find that roasting dries food, so it makes them harder to digest. So carrots, zucchini, and green beans tend to be safe. Make them in a soup, stew, saute, or steam, and then add maybe some olive oil. Other vegetables that are leafy greens, it's a hit or miss. So things like Swiss chard, arugula, lettuce, spinach, kale, collard greens. Some people can handle these and some people need to cook them really well, and some people cannot handle them at all. So you're gonna have to try on your own and see what works for you and experiment a little bit there. Fruit can also be tricky. The ones that tend to be easier to tolerate for people with IBS are cantaloupe, honeydew, pineapple, banana, strawberry, blueberries, and grapes. But keep in mind, some of these have high histamine. So if histamine is an underlying problem, some of these may not work for you, and you may want to watch my histamine videos, and I have the link in the description as well too. And also keep in mind with fruit that if you have a lot of candida or fungal overgrowth, we gotta go a little bit slower on the portions. Herbs and spices, except for the ones that I will mention in the avoid list, tend to be okay. So things like fresh or dried parsley, cilantro, rosemary, thyme, oregano, ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, clove, all of these tend to be okay, and they add flavor, and they are actually full of antioxidants and polyphenols that are going to be helpful for your overall gut health. When it comes to grains, people are usually able to handle a little bit of white rice or jasmine rice, and sometimes oats, sometimes quinoa, sometimes buckwheat. It really depends on the underlying root causes of your IBS. When it comes to fats and oils, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil tend to be okay, and a small portion of some nuts and seeds, like 1 to 2 tablespoons of almonds or peanuts or pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds, should be okay to handle and should not exacerbate your symptoms. And of course, as always, if you like the content so far, make sure you like and subscribe and write me a comment, share with a friend, because that tells YouTube that this content is useful and it will show it to other people who are looking for the same answer like you are today. And you should be able to handle lactose-free dairy products. So these are things like hard cheeses like cheddar or Swiss cheese, and lactose-free yogurts, lactose-free cottage cheese, lactose-free milk, and also butter and ghee tend to be naturally free of lactose. And with IBS, people tend to have a problem with lactose, the sugar in milk, not necessarily dairy proteins, but of course, if you have food sensitivities, you may have to eliminate dairy altogether. Which foods should you avoid or limit for a short period of time? So the aromatic vegetables that tend to bother people the most are garlic and onion and shallots. Any type of garlic, whether it's a bulb or a powder, and red onion, yellow onions. I know these are rich in a lot of prebiotics and good nutrients, But if you have IBS, if your gut is not working properly, then and you want to get relief, you want to eliminate some of these foods initially. You want to avoid beans, lentils, including soy, because they tend to be harder to digest. You want to avoid gluten-containing grains, wheat, rye, and barley, and not necessarily because of the gluten, they just happen to have gluten, and that's because they have certain fibers that aggravate the gut and cause more fermentation and can feed the wrong types of bacteria or microbes in the gut. And remember that things made from wheat include whole wheat, white bread and white flour and whole wheat flour, and couscous, frike, and bulgur. So many grains that don't look like wheat are actually made from wheat. Vegetables and fruit, the ones that you want to avoid are cauliflower, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, mushroom, and when it comes to fruit, apples, pear, watermelon, nectarines, and others. So that's not a comprehensive list, but these are some of the more common ones that tend to bother people. You want to avoid sugar alcohol, so these are xylitol and erythritol that you may find in sugar-free products and gums. And you want to avoid lactose-containing dairy, so that is regular milk, regular yogurt, regular ice cream, and soft cheeses. You want to avoid pistachios and cashews, excessive amounts of almonds, and in general, excessive amounts of nuts and seeds. So if you forget to make a meal and you're grabbing handfuls of nuts for a meal to feel satiated, you're going to end up having stomach pain, cramping, gas, and bloating. I know this is not a comprehensive list. I hope this gives you an idea or a place to start. If you want a specific meal plan or specific products to buy and a grocery shopping list and recipes that you can incorporate, because this tends to be a little overwhelming, I've created the 21-day IBS relief plan, which gives you all of this in a printout form with more details about how to modify your diet or the foods that you choose based on the symptoms that you have. So somebody with constipation is going to have different needs than someone with diarrhea, and I've also incorporated some instructions if you have acid reflux. That's a self-study course that you can get immediate access to. You can start looking at the foods and the food combinations that will work for you. You can follow my plan to the T. I have a 4-day meal plan that you can rotate, or you can have leftovers the next day, and so you can follow it. Or if you're a person who likes a little bit of freedom and flexibility, you have a list of foods that you want to focus on and a list of foods that you want to remove for a short period of time. And then inside the program, I teach you how to reincorporate some of these foods. I'm going to put the link for that in the description. And as always, every time I make any of these videos, I'm always trying to encourage people to start somewhere on their own. But you always want to keep in mind that something caused the IBS or the IBS symptoms. Something got you to where you're at today, and we need to peel the layers to find the underlying root causes. So if you're ready for that and for the next step, then you may want to do advanced testing, microbiome testing, food sensitivities, and so forth. And that's what I offer in my one-to-one coaching and consultations. I hope this was helpful to give you an idea of foods that you can eat and foods that you want to avoid, so you can start on your own. And if you want my help, check out the links in the description for any of my programs. And as always, like, subscribe, and share. Leave me your comments and I'll come back and I'll do my best to respond and answer as many questions as I can. And I'll see you on the next video.